As Unitarian Universalists, our covenant, the promises we make to each other, include our tolerance for diversity and how we support each other as a community of seekers. The element of our covenant upon which I call at this moment and on which I am going to rely right now is that of assuming good intent. Please know that my message begins with good intent. And right now, I hope you will reciprocate and demonstrate your good intent by snapping your fingers as I recite this beatnik poem that's going to emerge. After you've been having steak for a long time, beans taste fine. And after you've been drinking champagne and brandy, you come to settle for wine, for the world is crazy and people are strange, and man is a creature of constant change. After you've been having steak for a long time, beans taste fine. So, this is a poem from Shel Silverstein, who our oldie moldies may remember. He's the author of this poem. And, part of my practice is to look for signs and symbols that keep me or spirit me along the path. And this just came to mind because I thought we need energy. And I had two real goals in mind when I chose this as our introduction. First I wanted to tell you the thoughts I had when I came to this poem. I heard the clarion cry to stick to my vegetarian aspirations. And Core says, we shouldn't have eaten those chicken wings. But on the other hand, by snapping and singing Shel's goofy poem, I wanted to achieve two goals. First, I wanted to garner your sympathy and open my heart to help elevate your vibratory best wishes for anyone who rises above the fray and gets behind this podium and attempts public speaking. Second, I wanted to help us transcend our judgmental, categorizing, bifurcated mental state of thinking and reasoning. Perhaps we can use my well-intentioned opening as a springboard, and together we can fly like angels to a higher state. Need I remind you, angels can fly because they take themselves lightly. Or as I used to say in the world of education, in order to teach the kid, you have to hook the child, that childlike element in all of us. I'm also aware that the mind can absorb only what the bottom can endure. So I hope not to overspeak today. Nonetheless, I do have a message of meaning for me. And I hope you can hear a truth resonating for you. Because as I.K. Timney, the author I'm really hot on right now, says, we're all born with a longing for love. Stephen Levine, another poet that I enjoy, says, "The mind creates the abyss. The heart crosses over it, and love is the bridge." The title of the message I chose was "Don't Be a Toxic Cell in the Body of Humanity." And that may seem kind of condescending and bombastic and dictatorial. So rather than exhorting you to your end, I prefer to unveil my personal conviction to myself. I refuse to be a toxic cell in the body of humanity. I refuse. This message seems to have sourced from Lipton and Behrman's book, Spontaneous Evolution. The conviction to resist the poison of the exterior life surfaced for me in a morning meditation. A cellular biologist, Bruce Lipton, presents a vivid case for harmony as a key to survival. In light of the Russian aggression and invasion of Ukraine, how can I reconcile the paradoxical biological implications of the 50 to 70 trillion cells in my human body living and working together in harmony just to benefit my body in whom they reside, while a mere 8 billion humans are struggling not to exterminate themselves in the body of humankind on our immense planet. In response to this dissonance, resonating in the internal dialogue of my spotless mind and my sensory experience of being dragged into the lower vibratory planes of deep despair, I determined that no matter what blood, what mud, what mire, and what truth was delivered to my external reality, I would work on my internal equilibrium. Hoping my cells would sustain their equanimity, I promised myself to breathe more deeply, to move more frequently, and to process my negative feelings as a means to sublimate these negative impulses. Further, I resolved not to contaminate my fellow humans in the wholeness of the body of mankind. This is my commitment to myself and to humanity, to channel the detritus of toxic emotional threats, to tread the waters of my consciousness and stay afloat in as elevated a state as possible. I quit asking why. I don't ask why. Rather, I ponder, what purpose does this serve? And here's what I know from my training and from my personal experience. When a negative or traumatic experience ends in real time, but does not end for the person who is perceiving that experience, it continues psychologically far beyond the physical ending. The failure to terminate the emotions of an experience generates a psychological trace or memory that is stored in the unconscious. And at some time, unbidden and unbridled, that unconscious trace will erupt later as a trigger to a conflict in my life. Therefore, I owe it to myself and to those in my wake to transform and channel negativity. Keeping one's cells working in harmony takes a stabilizing sense of courage and attention to maintaining one's health. Building a bridge of love that transcends the mind, that entity that makes the abyss, takes steadfast practice and a blind belief in its benefits. Ancient wisdom teaches that the mind is not the brain, nor is the intellect intelligence. Instead of our Western paradigm of consciousness that can be detected and measured, I have been reading texts that conceptualize planes of consciousness that far ascend the mental state as we know it. Remember, not everything that can be measured is meaningful, and not everything that is meaningful can be measured. As Reverend Aday discussed last week, science and spirituality are approaching a common ground, but not just yet. I.K. Timney, a PhD chemist and philosopher, combo, describes modern science succinctly. He says, modern science is like a deaf man studying musical instruments of great variety and delicacy. He studies these instruments with great care and intensity, but he refuses to believe that there is such a thing as music. I conclude that hearing the music is the knowing, and knowledge plus love is wisdom. From Timey's vignette, we might say that in the practice of the scientific method, seeing is believing. But in my practice of the science of spirituality, believing and reaching for higher consciousness through meditation yields to a seeing that is often a truth beyond knowing. My practice of meditation, our practice of meditation, is just that. It's a practice. It's a ritual we begin every morning. And I have no language that begins to describe the mental vacations I have experienced in meditation. Breath work and mantras are my anchors. But still, the ability to describe the fruits of my labors escapes. As Carl Jung might say, when we speak of spiritual contents, we move in images that are ineffable. Thus, focusing on the source of life force through revitalizing breath work, aspiring to a higher consciousness with good intent, committed to my belief in our common origins in one source, I intend to help raise the tidal vibrations of my brothers and sisters in the body of humankind. As goes the Sanskrit mantra, Soham. I am that. What happens to me? We are one.